This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Coveil. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. I'm going to try and carve something out today. A lot of disparate things have come across my desk this week. I guess the week's just gotten started. But so here's what I'm thinking. So I have a client, a student, a smart guy named Steve Beamer, one of the first people that we did one-on-one training with. And we don't keep up too much, but Steve always sends me interesting stuff. And he sent me something today, and it was from the Trend Following Forum on LinkedIn. And it was a headline talking about former Lehman Brothers veterans rolling out one of the first systematic, innovative volatility funds. And the little headline says, it's a Paris-based asset manager specializing on the volatility asset class. And it will shortly launch this innovative long-short Eurozone volatility fund, which aims at both absolute return and anti-correlation. Goes on to say it's one of the first systematic funds within an emerging asset class. Although fully systematic, the portfolio management process is centered on ex-ante qualitative objectives. I've been around this trend following space for a long time. I'm not sure what any of that means. And I could just be, I could be an idiot. I might just be I might be brain dead. Sounds like some house is burning down out there. So you guys will have to excuse that. But anyways, I don't know what any of that means. And the reason I bring it up is I'm not attempting to say the folks that are launching this are not bright guys. They probably are very bright. Maybe they've got something. But if you're posting in a trend following forum and you need to use all that language to describe what you're doing, it's either marketing hype or there's just not clear thinking. And to me, I think that's what I was thinking about this morning is the lack of clear thinking. It just seemingly, ex-ante qualitative objectives and, using the word volatility like it's unique. When you think that people didn't trade off volatility 3 decades ago? So anyways, I see that, and I'm also at the same time this week, I catch a piece from a fundamental hedge fund manager, a guy named Hugh Hendry. And I don't know about Hugh's style of trading necessarily, but I did read his letter. And I do know that he's been against the bailouts and he's very libertarian in his thinking and a lot of smart ways of describing the economic political world in terms of his signals and how he gets in and gets out. That's past my pay grade. But what caught me in his letter were some of the comments that he raised. And the one paragraph that really hit me initially is he said, for the last 10 years have taught me anything. Now mind you, I've just read the section where the guy is talking about ex-ante this and some kind of super duper volatility fund that, so all this lack of clear thinking or clear marketing language. So here's where Hendry, if I'm making the comparison to get you to think clearly, because at the end of the day, a trend following approach has to be clear. You can't have ambiguity. You can't have, is this kind of amorphous blob of nonsensical whatever. It's got to be clear. So Hendry says, quote, "For if the last 10 years have taught me anything, it must be that the French philosopher Albert Camus, in his search for an understanding of the principles of ethics that can shape and form our behavior, may have surreptitiously provided us with 3 basic principles for macro investing. I'm perhaps doing him a gross injustice, but I would summarize as follows. God is dead, life is absurd, and there are no rules. In other words, you are on your own and you must take ownership of your own destiny." Well, that sure is trend following. in terms of the philosophical thinking. You need that foundation. It's you. It's not. Hendry can make the proper comments that banks should not be bailed out, but at the end of the day, Hendry is not going down and standing on the corner at an Occupy Wall Street event with black war paint on his head, throwing trash cans through the windows at Starbucks. He's going to have to deal with the system as it is, and he has to take control of his own destiny. The world's too big of a place for one person to fix everything. That's not the objective. Yes, I can make, and I do this, and folks get on me. They're like, well, why are you making this political economic comment? What does it have to do with anything? Well, look, there is a right and a wrong way to do things, and I think that's what Hendry is getting at here too, and it's what I sometimes get at. So yes, sometimes you can make an argument. You can say, well, Covel, your economic and political opinions don't mean shit. All you do is follow the price. Well, that's absolutely true. I'm not trying to tell anybody, including myself, to trade off my economic and political views. But, as Tom Basso recently pointed out, if you win as a trend-following trader, if you win, and the whole freaking system is collapsing, or your counterparty can't pay you, if you win and they can't pay up because they're bankrupt or they're a fraud or this or that, that's not good. So yes, you're trading via price. That's what you're doing. You're having this clear-headed thinking. You're not doing what I described in the very beginning. You're not developing a trend-following approach that is this jumble of language and confusing thought. That's why Hendry's clear thoughts really kind of hit me. And so I even have these summed up, and it's because it's not we. We're not on a team together. Okay. It's you. It's me. In America, we love this right now. We're all going to fix the economy. We're all going to do this. No, we're not. Okay. It's you. It's me. That is the way it is. Life ain't fair. You make it happen. No one's really there to change your diaper. Okay. You got to make it happen. You don't make it happen. You can go to the Occupy Wall Street event. You can cheer. You can march. You can beg for Social Security benefits. I don't care. But you know what? That's no way to lead a life. So once again, when Hendry says that, in other words, you're on your own. You must take ownership of your own destiny. If you don't believe that, stop listening to me. Please don't pay attention to my stuff. I'm worthless to you if you don't believe that. If you don't think you're in control of your own destiny, I am absolutely worthless. All I am is a mirror. Okay. And I'm having other people point the mirror back at me. But let me give some more of these Hendry comments that I picked up in his newsletter, though, too. I've mentioned this one, and I'm going to keep saying it. You're on your own. You must take ownership of your own destiny. Great. And so in the environment of pathological price volatility, one must stop loss the portfolio's narrative. Well, like I said, I don't know that Hugh, and you're going to see where I'm going with this in a second. You're like, why are you talking about this guy, Hugh Hendry, who says he's a fundamental guy? Just hold tight for a second. So it says, in this environment of pathological price volatility, one must stop loss the portfolio's narrative. Well, that sure as heck sounds like trend following to me. And he goes on to say, he says, my firm occupies an area outside the accepted belief system. Well, I don't know that trend following is inside any accepted belief system for the majority. It's surely not. Can I add one little interjection here? I saw the other day, and this is not trying to lay out a political persuasion one way or the other, but I saw Republican Congressman Paul Ryan was going to give a speech at Georgetown, which is near where I grew up. I remember I played baseball there, and not at the school, but I remember in high school we played our championship game there. But my father went to Georgetown, and so he's going to speak there. And I guess Ryan, over the years, had told his either employees or assistants that worked for him that they had to read Atlas Shrugged. That was like par for the course. And so I guess now, to speak at Georgetown, all of the Catholic bishops have told him that he has to disavow his beliefs in Atlas Shrugged and whatnot. And that's not clear thinking, I'm not making a religious comment. I'm talking about clear thinking. I'm talking about what Hendry was getting at, which it's you. Clear thinking, outside the accepted belief system. Why do you need to do all this? Well, if you want to make money, you can be inside the accepted belief system, but then what are you doing? You're trusting, you're relying on, you're having to hope that the invisible hand will take care of you. change your diaper when you wet your pants. I mean, you're expecting that there's going to be someone there to do it all for you. Hendry goes on to say, he says, quote, "How many of us have this power to cultivate and truly believe in the unexpected," end quote. Well, I'm actually going to bring the full gist of that comment up in a second, but that is so trend following. How many of you can believe in truly the unexpected? You're not predicting the unexpected, but trend following is at its foundation a strategy for the unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen next week? Yeah, I don't either. Does it seem like we've got a lot more volatility in the last dozen or so years? Boy, it sure seems like it. So how do you manage that? How do you approach it? Another great line from Hendry that I caught here. He says, one of the features that makes a successful fund manager is that he or she responds early with loss mitigation procedures, i.e., a method of staying solvent, rational, and disciplined under pressure. Well, that's trend following again, isn't it? I mean, loss mitigation procedures. Now, he's being a little British and a little flowing with his words. I can't, I'm not going to criticize that because I think that's fun. I love that. And he says, early loss mitigation procedure, he's just saying, have a stop. So I don't take that as being overdone. Like when I was talking about that fund early on that wasn't clear headed. I think Hendry's very clear headed when it comes to that style of thinking. So once again, as I go through this and as I try to carve out something as I look at all this paper strewn across my desk right now, and I'm trying to figure out how do I carve something out that gets you to think? First off, we're thinking clearly. Number one, okay? This is all trend following foundation. You're thinking clearly. It's you. It's you. You are the team. It's not you and your buddies with war paint, either at the football game or the Occupy Wall Street. That's just sheep behavior. I mean, look, if sheep behavior is a goal, if you want to hang out with big groups of people, there's nothing wrong with it. I've done that at certain points in time. If you want to hang out with big groups of people, go for it. But guess what? You're going to get the results of big groups of people. So if you want results outside of the crowd, you have to have, as Hendry was talking about, that outside belief system, outside the norm. I hope this is making sense, or at least how I'm trying to connect all these dots. I think it does in my own head. I guess that's all I'm really concerned about. You guys can always turn me off if you don't like where I'm going with this. So for those that are going to be critical of me, they're going to say, well, yeah, I just picked up Hendry's newsletter. I can see it linked on your website. And this guy's talking about all kinds of fundamental stuff. Well, he sure is. That appears to be his entry-exit criteria. I'm not signing off on that. I'm not proposing it. I don't know anything about how he does that. However, if you read between the lines, as I've been pointing out with some of these excerpts, there's a lot of trend following. There's a lot of risk management. And if you go even further, inside his current letter that just came out, he goes on to say, it's his assertion that what makes a great fund manager, first and foremost, is the ability to establish a contentious premise outside the existing belief system and have it go on to become adopted by the broader financial community. Bruce Kovner expressed the idea more eloquently when he said, quote, "I have the ability to imagine configurations of the world different from today and really believe it can happen. I can imagine that the dollar can fall to 100 yen. I'm sure you're nodding in agreement, except Bruce was saying this when dollar yen was well over 200, not today's rate of 80. Okay, so once again, I like this guy, Hugh. I mean, how can you not? You watch his videos online. He's nailing these bailouts. He's got this fundamental newsletter. And then in the middle of this fundamental newsletter is Bruce Kovner. Right? Say, well, a lot of people perhaps don't know who he is, a multi-billionaire. He's a trend-following trader who happens to have been trained by Michael Marcus of originally Commodities Corporation, the trend-following incubator from the 1970s. Well, Michael Marcus was trained by Ed Seykota. And so everyone pretty much knows. I mean, I'm sure there's different audiences that know those names. Michael Marcus is probably less known, but he's very terribly successful. So you look at this chain, and this is almost, these guys were before, in many ways, were before the turtles. So I'm not trying to, downplay them or compare them, but it's very turtle-esque. Ed Seykota trains Michael Marcus. Michael Marcus trains Bruce Kovner 25 years later or whatever, in the middle of a fundamental newsletter piece by Hugh Hendry. Here's Bruce Kovner's name. Now, that lineage, to me, is important to understand. That is the magic, the magic key, so to speak, is to understand, to read between the lines to see what's going on. Look, the title of my blog post about Hendry was Closet Trend Follower. I don't know. Perhaps he is a closet trend follower. Perhaps he's 100% mechanical and is a smart guy who needs to relate to the outside world to get people to understand. Perhaps the fundamental stories are used to explain trend following success. Could be. I don't know for sure. So I want everyone to see where I'm going with this. I mean, to me, it's clear. And I think also, as I brought up the thing about Paul Ryan and Atlas Shrugged, and I said this on my blog recently, I had to read Atlas Shrugged before Ed Seykota would give me the time of day. It was almost like that was like the, read this book and then we'll have a nice conversation. It's true story. So think about, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get you to think with these disparate pieces that I'm outlining today. Whether it's the piece in LinkedIn and the trend following forum with the lack of clear thinking, it's Hugh Hendry's piece where he's citing French philosopher Camus. He's bringing up Bruce Kovner. I'm bringing up Paul Ryan and Atlas Shrugged. I'm connecting dots with Kovner, Marcus, Ed Seykota, three clear trend following traders that are seemingly buried like a secret nugget in the middle of Hendry's piece. So what do you do with all this information? This is confidence if you're paying attention. This is confidence. You can develop confidence from this. You can start to see that there's this underground network that almost communicates amongst itself in public. And if you're paying attention to the cues, you can see it. Now, I want to end this piece to bring it back to something I think is really important. So one of the trend following traders that I interviewed here recently was a guy named Mike Schell. And Mike linked to a piece that was in Pensions and Investments magazine talking about value at risk measures, which it's got some faulty logic behind it. And the quote goes on to say, and as I said in my blog post, I think this is 50% right because it describes the problem and 50% wrong because it describes the solution. It doesn't describe the solution, correctly, I mean. So here's the quote. It says, value at risk and other popular risk measurements are typically effective during calm markets, but oftentimes are quite ineffective during challenging periods such as market shocks. Well, that's very true. Good line. It goes on to say, more predictive models need to be used now that market volatility is high. Oh my gosh. So here's this great sentence. And the next sentence is psycho sentence. Once again, we're trying to think clearly. I'm laying all these different little pieces out to get you to think clearly. No, figuring out a prediction model is not the solution. Just not the solution at all. Volatility is high right now. Well, volatility in many markets is not high, actually. And when I say that, or when that comment's made in the blog post, who cares? Volatility changes. As a trend following trader, you have to have a situation that allows you to adapt to volatility on a daily basis. That's the objective here. Not trying to just say, well, volatility is today. Well, yeah, it's going to change. It always changes. What are you going to do when it changes? What's your approach? How do you manage your position size based on a changing volatility? That's the trick. So when you see somebody, and once again, I'm going to add in. So I'm connecting these dots, and I'm going to keep reiterating this. So I'm connecting dots from LinkedIn and Hugh Hendry and Bruce Kovner and Paul Ryan and Atlas Shrugged. Well, the only way that I think I could end this, right, is to talk about pain. Because, Hugh Hendry's talking about loss mitigation. I'm bringing up value at risk, which to some degree is not loss mitigation. So if you don't play the game right, and I think this sometimes gets people to understand the story even more correctly, because you can, you value at risk measures. So here's my jumping off point. So you want to follow value at risk measures. You don't want to have clear thinking. Well, I think Jack White, the singer, actually has some good insights, some really good insights about the pain that you can find yourself in. And I think he's got a really interesting song out, kind of a little love song out, but except there's some lyrics in there that I think people would not typically expect to hear in a love song. But the lyrics, to me, really spell out kind of in a fantastically simple way what you're going to go through if you don't have clear thinking, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a way to avoid the notion that you think you can predict, if you can't be outside the herd. I think White really nails it. And here's two lyrics, and I'll play part of this song on the way out, but stick a knife inside me and twist it all around, grab my fingers gently, slam them in a doorway, put my face to the ground. That, my friends, let me say it again because I think it's a cool line, right? Stick a knife inside me and twist it all around, grab my fingers gently, slam them in the doorway, put my face into the ground. That is what happens to you when you don't have clear thinking. That's the fall of 2008. So all of this scenario that I'm laying out today, just be clear. Have a plan. This is the trend following foundation. And I think as I lay out all these little notes and nuggets today, you might say, well, they're not related, Mike. These don't make any sense. Da, 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 da. Oh, come on. If you're saying that, you're not even paying attention. Really, you're not paying attention. I'm not saying I'm perfectly describing this. I'm not saying that my head might not have bouts of schizophrenia and things are messed up and moving around in all kinds of sideways directions. But if you're paying attention, it's all connected. If you don't think it's connected, yeah, you might want to go listen to that Jack White song a little bit more. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.